Welcome on in, guys. It is September 11th, a day that we remember for a tragedy and the loss of many lives from 9/11. So I want to honor them, but also it's been a really interesting 24 hours. Charlie Kirk, who many people know as a conservative activist, um, obviously a lot of people know him from Turning Point USA. He was assassinated yesterday, and today's going to be a really uncomfortable conversation. I'm probably not going to look at the live chat today, but I will let you guys share your thoughts freely. I just ask that you're respectful and know that people will probably come into the live chat today with the intention of wreaking havoc, creating chaos, and further trying to divide us. And that is not what today is intended for. So please remember that. Try to be respectful, even for the people that you may disagree with, or for the people that try to bait you into saying something negative in return. I ask that you just keep it respectful. So, with that said, let's dive into today's episode. You're listening to No Filter with Zack Peter, your go-to source for all the latest pop culture and reality TV tea, served fresh all week long. Now, let's dive in. And dive in we shall. Just to preface, today's not going to be a fun, fluffy pop culture conversation. Well, I mean, this is pop culture. It's what's happening. It's the popular conversation within our culture at this moment, and we are going to talk about it. We are going to get into it, and we are hopefully going to come together stronger as a result of it. I posted a video yesterday that's now, I think, gotten like over 1 million views. So I want to play it on the podcast today, just to reiterate some of those statements if you didn't see it. And if you did see it, I want you to see it and hear it again. And I ask that you just listen to what I'm trying to say with an open ear and an open heart. And hopefully, we can learn and grow through all of this. But here it is. I'll play it. And then I have two very special guests that I'm welcoming on to discuss further. So Charlie Kirk has lost his life. And I think that it's a very, very tragic day in our world where we think that the only solution to our disagreements is to take somebody else's life. My heart breaks for his wife and for his babies that will now be left without a father in a very permanent way. I understand that this video may get me some heat, or people may not fully understand where I'm coming from, but if you're not ready to listen to it, or you feel the need to further perpetuate anger and hate, then I encourage you to scroll on. And if you are willing to just take a second to listen, I hope you listen with an open ear and an open heart. How did we get here, guys? Like, this is not okay. Like, nothing about this is okay. And anybody that's relishing or celebrating in this moment, I don't understand, because we have now gotten to a point where we are justifying that it's okay to just actively take somebody else's life in broad daylight. And that is never okay. I don't know. I like to think that I have empathy and morals, despite what the internet may say about me. But I think I'd like to, try to be a decent person. And I know that there's no world where actively just taking somebody else's life is tolerable or just something we allow these days. But I also know, as much as this is infuriating and I know is angering a lot of people, I also hope that we take a moment and pause and fuel that anger and try as hard as it is to channel that into love right now. Because right now we have a media that wants to divide us and people that want to demonize each other because of who they think the other person is, without actually getting to know people anymore, have real conversations anymore. And it's an isolating time. And so I think we should be showing up with active love right now, as hard as that may feel. But we have to remember that we got to this place because of anger, right? Somebody got so angry that they felt that they were entitled to take another person's life. And so I hope that we see that and course correct and do the opposite. Not do what they want us to do and continue to be angry and continue to be outraged, but do the opposite and continue to show up with active love and compassion and empathy, and, just see people as humans right now and understand that we're all flawed. We all look at things differently. And just because we have a different perspective, that doesn't make us an evil human being. And that goes for both sides, right? There are extremists on both. So my heart breaks for Charlie Kirk's family, especially his two babies that he leaves behind. He was only 31. I'm 32. He was a year younger than me. just try to show up with love, guys. That's all. That's what I'm going to try to do. All right. I also just want everybody to, as we continue to channel that humanity, remember this was a father and a husband. There are two babies that woke up this morning without a father, which was obviously something that he advocated against. You know, he advocated for the importance of having a fatherly figure in the life of young children. And, you know, now his kids, ironically, will have to face that fate of moving forward without him. So just remember them right now and remember his wife. Okay, I want to welcome on two guests. We'll go over the latest updates from, you know, what has transpired in the last 24 hours since Charlie was killed. But I want to welcome on two of my friends, Shawn and David. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi, Zack. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you
having
guys
me.
for being here. Yeah.
Thanks for making me cry right as you're coming on that
Were you
video.
crying? Oh.
Almost. Like, it's just so sad. Like, it makes me angry and emotional for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here.
It's a really uncomfortable reality that we're in, that we've now seen our world be so divided, you know, and I see so many people, I know so many people that are maybe, you know, in the center or on the right that are angry at the left right now. And I understand the anger, but we can't allow the anger to turn into hatred, because then we're no better than the person that shot him. And we're not the world the country that I voted for is not the country where we just take out our guns and just start shooting each other because we're angry at each other and we want to demonize each other and we want to say that the other side is evil. I believe in humanity and I believe in the good in the world, but the only way we continue to bring that good in the world is to be that good in the world, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, Zack.
How are you feeling, Shawn?
Well, I'm not, I've suffered a lot of loss in my life, but for whatever reason yesterday, and maybe it's because of Charlie and who he was in the movement, and I did not know him personally, but just how he always showed up and was willing to talk to anybody. Yesterday hit me really hard. I mean, I cried a lot yesterday. I also was feeling angry, and I think that that I watched Megyn Kelly too. She had a couple people on, and I don't even know how she got through that. I mean, she was crying through half of it, and so was I. I'm feeling emotionally exhausted, and then also today is 9/11 a day that always kind of hits home kind of hard. So I'm feeling sad. I am feeling a little angry, but trying to show up with love, as you said in your video.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I respected, although I didn't agree with Charlie 100% on every single point, and I think that's the beauty of, you know, what I was hoping our country was turning into, is that we were able to, even if we voted the same way, still respect that we still have differences and we still aren't always going to agree. And I just felt like there was a shift that was coming in our country, and there is. And let's be very clear, this was, you know, a moment that will go down in history that I believe is a turning point for our country and hopefully for the world to see that this is not the path we want to go down. And it's time to turn the car around, time to flip the bitch and course correct. It says no U-turn, but we got to make some sort of turn here. You know, we can't keep going down the path that we're going on, because it's just creating more and more division. But one thing that I respected about Charlie is that he was willing to have those conversations. As much as the media wants to brand him as somebody that wanted to divide people, if you actually listened to him and watched his content or really understood what he was about, it was about the exact opposite. It was about bringing people together by having uncomfortable conversations in a very respectful way. You know, I know they like to clip things out of context or whatever, but he showed up on college campuses to speak to the youth and challenge them to debate him, to have that conversation. And that's why we need to continue to have those conversations, as difficult as that may be.
Yeah. And it's going to be especially difficult at this time. I like to try, even though it's hard, not to feel like in the weeds because it just happened and there's still so much information coming out. I like to also kind of think of like, would be the point of this? Like, what was the goal that people were trying to? Was it to like silence conservative voices? Was it just to cause division and chaos? Was it to truly spark some kind of like violent revolt, which a lot of people are talking about now, especially after the case of the Ukrainian migrant who was stabbed to death on the bus? So a lot of people are kind of like saying, we're fed up. This is it. This is a turning point, a breaking point. And I tend to agree. What I just don't want people to become is like pawns or useful idiots in somebody else's larger scheme or game. You know, Charlie deserves so much respect because he was willing to have conversations that put his own livelihood, lifestyle, relationships at risk. Like just at this last Student Action Summit, when he had Tucker Carlson up there, Megyn Kelly up there talking about Israel and Gaza, when he had Dave Smith out to do the debate about Israel, Gaza, that was huge. A lot of people were not expecting that whatsoever because of Turning Point's natural allegiances and, you know, the people that the organization is made up of. A lot of Christians, a lot of Christian Zionists. So the fact that he was able to do that was massive. And it actually gave me so much hope that truly we can say that for the majority of like a large right movement, a movement like Turning Point, the right wing, MAGA, MAHA, when we have these events like AmFest or anything else, we aren't a completely insular bubble. We aren't all the same. There is such a diaspora of opinions on the right and on the center right, even the moderate right, or even people that wouldn't even necessarily call themselves right wing, but they have crossover with like maybe libertarian leanings, or you know, they disagree with the constant warmongering. So that, like you said, we were headed somewhere where the conversations are more open and honest, and I just really don't want us to regress to a point where it's just tribal politics and we're trying to like outdo or out evil or out harm each other. And that's where it could easily be headed because people are angry and justifiably so. This was a
Yeah.
disgusting, disgusting thing that happened yesterday. And unfortunately, I think it was a bit more organized than people might believe.
Well, I mean, you listed all of those reasons, all those potential reasons as what could have been motivations behind this, and I think they're all motivations behind this. I think this was to make people afraid of speaking out and being honest. And I mean, if anything, I think Charlie was a bigger threat because he wasn't dividing people as much as he was uniting people.
Yeah.
And if there are forces that want us to remain divided, then that's what you do, is you take out somebody that's bringing people together. I also just wanted to take a moment to, because you mentioned her, Irina Zarutska, who lost her life. She was the woman that was stabbed on a train in Charlotte. And just an update for anybody that hasn't followed the case too closely. But the man that killed her, he has now been charged with a federal crime. So he is finally being held accountable. He was arrested, 14 times. He has 14 different mugshots. His own mother has spoken out for, you know, fear of what he may do. And he took a woman's life. And I think that was unfortunate. And he walked away as we saw this woman bleed out on a train and die, and nobody went to her. It took a while before a man finally came over to check on it. There were people that were filming it with their phones. Like, again, the lack of humanity that we have. And for this man to walk away and say, I got that white woman. It's just, it's
Evil.
It's sad, you know? And I was also upset with the media coverage or lack thereof of this case. And I think, you know, these are two tragedies that and also the school shooting yesterday. I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of tragedy in the world right now. And I think coming together on 9/11 to remember the tragedies that our country has faced, and hopefully, again, allow this to not divide us further. But I did want to take a moment to acknowledge Irina.
Yeah, that's so sad.
Yeah, and that happened right in my backyard. So there's a candlelight vigil that they're going to do for her this weekend, I believe. So I'm going to that. But I think that you touched on something, Zach, just to elaborate for a second. I think that we as a country and as a people need to ask ourselves about our how we bring ourselves back to, I guess, regain some of our humanity, because you know, none of these things, there's too much violence that's happening. And no matter where you stand politically or on any of these issues, violence isn't isn't the answer. And I think that Charlie did a good job of that. He would get up and have conversations with people who absolutely hated him, but he used his words.
Yeah. And I know President Trump announced that Charlie Kirk will be honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. As many of us have heard by now, Charlie was assassinated at a college campus in Utah. His body will be flown to Phoenix, Arizona, which is where I imagine they will be honoring him. I know J.D. Vance said that Vice President J.D. Vance is going to be spending time with his family today. That's really what's heavy on my heart, is the fact that, last night his wife, Erica, had a husband and today she doesn't. Last night there were 2 babies that had a dad and this morning they don't. But just updates, they suspect that the shooter was a college-age man on campus, which is kind of how he blended in. There were multiple people that were questioned and detained, none of whom have been confirmed as the actual shooter. The shooter is believed to still be at large. And then I think as of this morning, the latest report was that there was some pro-trans, anti-fascist messaging on, I believe it was the bullets. They did find a gun nearby. It was an assault weapon. Yeah.
I don't want to believe that a trans shooter would be that good of a shot. I don't want to think that. That's really disturbing. I've had so many threats from them.
Well, whoever it was obviously well trained at 200 yards. This is not
200 yards. Yeah.
I go to the range all the time. I've been hunting since I was a kid. It's not an easy shot, especially with all of those people around, and that he had it, the tent above him too. So whoever did this was, practicing for it.
And the fact that the old man said, shoot me at the same time. And then there was another guy found with a BB gun. So it seems like this is almost like a formula. It's like where you have 2 patsies and a shooter so that the crowd and everybody else is distracted by, I don't want to get all conspiratorial, but oh my gosh, it's a little on the nose.
Well, the one thing that we do know that was confirmed that it, unfortunately, I watched the video yesterday. I wish that I hadn't seen it. The up close video.
The close one. Yeah, that one will wreck you.
Yeah. I don't think that anyone should be watching that. And I even also called for Elon Musk to make sure that whoever posted it, the people who have posted it on Twitter, aren't able to monetize it. I don't think that you should be monetizing that. But what we do know is that the question that was asked by the person in the audience at the time, the first question was a religious-based question, and he went for about 15 minutes with that person. And then the next person who stepped up asked a question about mass shootings, specifically about the recent rise in transgender mass shootings. And that is when he began to answer the question, and that's when the shot rung through. So I think it was, I guess, at least interestingly timed, to say the least, around the question around mass shootings, and then for that to happen right then. So we do know that.
Yeah. And that you can see from, the faraway videos. The up close one was just
gruesome
and ugly. The second I saw it, I was praying for him, but I was like, I don't know how anybody survives that. That was a kill shot. That was a shot designed to assassinate him, and it did.
And something that really struck me yesterday, I'm working on a mayor's campaign right now, and the mayor's around my age, like in his 30s, and he was saying how, wow, that's the first time I'd ever seen somebody shot and killed, like on camera, and that's going to be the same experience for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And that is traumatizing, like truly traumatizing. The fact that this happened out in the open as he's answering a question about guns and violence, the fact that it happened as all these cameras were rolling, like this was meant to like traumatize and cause as much chaos and make as large of a statement as possible. So it's like we're meant to see this, and now, like you said, we should just be thinking about how we go forward and what the next steps we take, and we should consider that carefully, because it's like, if God forbid this is if there are any sort of machinations or strings being pulled behind the scenes we don't yet know about, like, I don't want to fall into some BS trap of divisive divisive rhetoric or finger pointing, or just like fall into a neat little narrative, kind of like how they wanted to blame the Trump assassination on Iran. So I just feel like we just need to be careful and use as much discernment as possible right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're being baited. We're being pushed to fight and to be divisive and to tear each other apart and to, bring anarchy in our country. And I think as long as we're mindful and cognizant of that, we can prevent ourselves from falling into that trap. But that's why we have to also manage our own emotions and our own reactions to things, as hard as that is. And like I kept saying yesterday on Instagram and on TikTok, I just kept saying we have to show up with active love right now, as hard as that is, because we want to be angry at all these people that may have hated Charlie, or it's so gross to me, the people that are celebrating and relishing in the loss of his life. I mean, it feels even weird to say he lost his life. Like, his life was taken from him. He didn't just lose it. He didn't just pass away. He was assassinated. He was murdered.
We can hear you, David.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't hear you guys for a second. Sorry.
I think, Zach, like that to me is where when I say, like, we need to, as individuals, kind of recenter ourselves and find our humanity above everything else. I mean, we're entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But this man has a wife and kids at home. And actually, I believe that it was confirmed they were actually at the event. But there were kids who were tucked into bed last night without a father, and are waking up this morning without a father. And so that to me is what really gets under my skin, is the people who are celebrating this online. You have lost your sense of humanity, because regardless of your political affiliation, there are children who are now going to grow up without a father, and to celebrate that is just sick. And I think that the people who are doing that, they need to take a pause and find themselves again.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm much less concerned about one sick individual who commits some atrocity like this, and I'm much more concerned about the millions, hundreds of thousands that are celebrating acts like this online openly, because that says something so much more about our culture and like a deep rooted brokenness, that people would celebrate the loss of life, especially someone who, like you said, has little kids waiting for him at home. That's so disgusting. And that's so much more concerning to me, because seeing these people celebrate wild-eyed, literally looking like they're possessed or on drugs, it just looks sick to me. It just looks sick and demonic to me.
And I mean, it was also horrible to see.
That's scary. That's really scary.
But we have to, I know that this is hard, but I think we have to also not ostracize them, because look at how many times people on the right were demonized or like, we got to this place because we said that people on the right, or people like Charlie Kirk, are Nazis, they're terrorists, they're all these things, and that rhetoric was spewed at one side, and I feel like that side takes a lot of heat unfairly. But I think that we have to remember to not give that back, because that only then continues to isolate people and separate people. And the more we demonize people, even if we don't understand them, Charlie Kirk was a God-fearing man. He did believe you have to love thy neighbor, even when it's incredibly uncomfortable and challenging to do so, because that's the only way we fight out that dark forces. You cannot fight out darkness with more darkness. You have to fight it with light. And sometimes light and darkness is hard. It's really hard, but we have to let this, soften our hearts and not harden them, as hard as that may be, and I know people are turning this into a political conversation about the Second Amendment, and he somehow deserved this because he advocated for the Second Amendment, or they're sharing his quote about how, unfortunately, there will be casualties as a result of, the right to bear arms and the right to, own a gun. And somehow they're like, it's like a warped sense of validating that he deserved this in some way. But let's be very clear, nobody deserves to lose their life.
No, and I think even it's a twisted way to try and justify this, but I think in terms of like, David mentioned like, I don't know what we do next or where we go from here. I think that a lot of it really is what Charlie was doing, and it's continuing to do that. It's first, I think that the media in general, I'm talking mainstream media, but also influencers on the left and smaller outlets on the left who these are the people who told us for years that words matter, and they have labeled Trump and his movement and his supporters as Nazis, as fascists, and there's a lot of I'm going to say mischaracterization of things that happens, and we see it every day. David and I, we're out there like fighting against these arguments and trying to prove these things wrong. But labeling, someone a Nazi and Hitler, and scaring the public that they're going to be locked up and put in internment camps. It's like, what do you expect these people to do? You've gotten them all riled up over something that actually is not going to happen. And so the media needs to lower the temperature. We need to do the same. Like on the right, everybody across the board needs to lower the temperature, and we need to still have respectful debate. Like that's something that Charlie would get up on stage and he would debate someone who absolutely hated him, but he did it with, very, very rarely, if ever, was he ever, what I say, like untactful. He did it tactfully and he did it with love. And that is, to David's point, like, or to your point, Zach, I think like he was a unifier, and that's why he was so effective in his messaging. But I think how we move forward is we continue doing just that. One, we lower the temperature across the board, and two, we need to continue having respectful debates, because at the end of the day, what I don't think that people realize is that we have the left and the right in general. We want to say the left and the right, but politics is a spectrum. There was a lot that I disagree with Charlie Kirk on. There's a lot that I disagree with a lot of people on the right on. There's stuff that I disagree with Trump on. But we in general in this country have a lot more in common when it comes to politics than we do. Than we don't. We have a lot more in common than we don't. And this country has gone through, I know it feels like we're very polarized right now because we are, and the country is divided, but we have been through times like this before. We had the Vietnam War, which was very divisive. We had a civil war in this country. And what has always brought us back together is the ability to speak and respectfully debate ideas and have intellectual discourse. And it's okay to disagree and shake hands and walk away. And that's what I think we need to get back to, because we're not going to make progress at all if we can't discuss intellectual debate. We can't have intellectual debates and discuss ideas together without loathing each other.
Yeah. Like, God forbid Charlie Kirk's legacy is blowing up this entire like civil discourse that he's worked so hard to create for years. Like, God forbid that that's the legacy after his death, that we ruin it by like refusing to turn the temperature down. Zach, also, I'm having trouble hearing you specifically. Are you like muted for me? Like, I can hear Shawn fine, but like your audio isn't coming through.
Can you hear me fine, Shawn?
I can't hear you. That's so weird. But I mean, it's fine.
Maybe
Direct
jump
your
out.
questions to Shawn and then I can hear them.
Maybe
So
jump out
weird.
and jump back in, David.
Okay, I'm gonna try to jump out and jump back in.
I was also just really disappointed in MSNBC yesterday when the news had come in and, they, rather than even, having a moment to process the news, their immediate thought was to say that, we don't know if this shooter could have potentially been a supporter of Charlie Kirk's who was just firing off his gun in celebration, which to me was so wild that we forget how the power that the media has and the fact that they aren't being human in their reporting. I mean,
Yeah, you're talking about the Matthew Dowd, who MSNBC has fired him. They came out and fired him for those comments. At first, they issued an apology, but last night, actually, I believe it was early this morning, but it was at like 1 or 2 a.m., I think, that I got the notification that they had fired him for those comments after they had issued that apology. And it goes as far, it's not just the media, it is the politicians too. So we had politicians in Congress yesterday calling for a moment of prayer, and the members of Congress screaming out no. It's just disgusting to me. Like, come together.
No, and then to say this is your fault, you guys caused this for fighting for gun rights. Like, it's like we took out humanity in that moment. And again, we politicize things. Even if it's like, listen, if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in Jesus, whatever, if you don't believe in prayer, you can still just take a moment to hold space for the fact that somebody lost their life.
Yeah, and I think this is something I definitely wanted to bring up. I think one of the things that he was targeted for the most was his faith, actually, because Charlie, I will say, was one of like the best examples of like a Christian, specifically like in a position of power, how he interacted with people that disagreed with him. He had such a light about him, and he had a way of treating people unless he was like fully antagonized. But if there was like an ounce of something workable on somebody's heart, Charlie would pick up on that and have a very honest connection with them and try to get through with them. And he was just a great example of, I mean, he was a good example of being almost like Christ-like. Again, I'm not saying like Christ-like in the sense that we're all supposed to be Christ-like, like we're all supposed to follow the most perfect man who ever lived. But he really, like, especially with being famous, rich, powerful, influential, that comes with a whole host of things that can change your personality, that can make you much more dark, that can make you greedy, that can make you more cutthroat. And he just seemed to always have that, like, a little bit of purity in him, you know? And I feel like people really hate that. People really hate to see like a good example of a Christian, because we've been very programmed in Western society specifically to tear down Christian hypocrisy and all of that. But it's like, of course, all Christians are hypocrites because we're all hypocrites. That's the point. That's the entire point, is every human is a hypocrite. So yes, every Christian's a hypocrite too. Congratulations. That wasn't an own, you know. But
well,
I don't know.
Too, there was a clip yesterday that I found, or maybe it was this morning, but it was someone on a podcast that at one point asked him, what would you most want to be known for? And he literally says, like, it like shook me to my core. He goes, like, if I'm dead. Like, he was so shocked to see that. Like, it just was interesting to hear. But he said that he would most want to be known for his faith, for his commitment to his faith. And the other thing that I want people to know who maybe didn't see any of these videos, like, there was a man at a college campus who came up to talk to Charlie Kirk, and he said, I'm a gay man. And he starts talking about, and Charlie's like, stop. I don't really care what you do behind closed doors, but you're a man, you're a person, and you don't have to introduce yourself as a gay person. you're a person. And so he, on that level, like he connected with people. And he even went on to say, like, from a religious standpoint, I don't agree with your lifestyle, but welcome to the movement and we're happy to have you. And, you know, we probably agree on more than we disagree on. And so there was a sense of, like, to what David was saying, like he was instilling in people, even on the right, people who disagreed with, for example, my lifestyle, David's, all of our lifestyles, but
Yeah.
on for one reason or another. But he was saying you're human first, and you deserve a place in this movement.
Yeah.
So he was a very inclusive person. If which is I mean, it's not. What's funny is they paint him as a divisive figure, and that's something they said on MSNBC yesterday, that he was one of the most divisive figures. I would argue he was one of the most unifying figures.
Yeah. Listen, because you can look at somebody like, you know, Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, who maybe are a little, their approach is a little spicier, right? They have a little more bite behind them.
Just a little
But
bit.
you cannot say, you cannot say that Charlie Kirk was that person. Like, if anybody, there are a lot of other figures on the right that you can say are divisive or combative, or, you know, maybe can have some content that can be rage bait-y. Even Megyn Kelly knows how to get the audience fired up. But that's one thing you cannot say about Charlie Kirk, is because his approach was so much of the opposite of that, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I see a lot of people bringing in the live chat. I know I said I wasn't going to look, but I peeked. Bringing up Melissa Hortman and her husband and how they were tragically killed in their home. I have said this on in comments on social media. No murder is ever justified. It doesn't matter who it is. That's the whole point of this conversation, is to say this is never right. And this is just the conversation we're having today. And in this moment, to go back to our analogy from 2020, right, about the fire trucks and the house on fire, and why are we going to water all the houses when we need to water the one house that's on fire in the moment, right? That's the conversation that we're having right now. We're addressing the house that's on fire in the moment. We're not trying to water all the houses that don't need the fire department to come and save them. So
And
let's
it's
remember our
tacky.
analogies.
It's just tacky too. Like,
Yeah.
like literally the body's not even cold and you're already bringing up something that happened before so that you can be flippant with your attitude about a current death. That doesn't make you empathetic or like woke or, you know, smart to like think about something that happened that's also a tragedy and horrific months or weeks
Yeah.
ago. It's just asinine to me. It's just a way people are using like mental gymnastics and
Yeah.
figuring out ways of not being like a decent person, or just a way of like justifying their inhumanity. You know, they'll do anything they can, and they'll justify in any sort of academic or intellectual way to just basically be like, I want to validate me being a shit person right now, like truly. And we saw that over 2020 a lot. Is you need to give people like this much reason to act like a tyrant and say it's for the good of the people, or for some reason, for the greater good, and people will take that mantle and they will ride it till the wheels fall off, because people just have, a lot of people have like an authoritarian like gene in them that just needs to be like triggered by something. I mean, this is how we've gotten, you know, multiple totalitarian regimes over the last 100 years. Like, we're literally no different than those people 60, 70, 80 years ago, you know? Like, we think that we're just like so much more enlightened beyond them, and we would never be able to like become an authoritarian or a totalitarian or a communist or a fascist. Baby, it happens. And like, it's happening. So it's like, it's dangerous to think that we are like, I think it's called like presentism, where you just basically think that the present moment and everything that we know now, we are like the supreme like arbiters of morals now. And it's like, yikes, it's a fail.
Yeah, but you know, again, we just have to remember that history and try to not repeat those same mistakes. And it starts with the level of awareness, and it starts with opening that door of self-reflection. And then from there, we just have to, we can't control other people. We can't control their rhetoric or how they behave. All we can do is control our own actions and how we choose to show up, and that's
And
all we can do in this moment. And I think especially today, remembering the lives lost on 9/11, remembering all the people, I mean, make the list of all the people you want to acknowledge for being murdered or losing their lives, and say a prayer for all of them if that means something to you. But right now and in this moment, the conversation is around Charlie Kirk, and I think it was you know part of his legacy to foster that conversation, that debate. And what greater way to do that than in this moment right now? Like, that legacy will live on, and I believe he will not die in vain.
And Turning Point isn't going anywhere. Like, I
Yeah.
think that if the objective of this person who took out Charlie and took Charlie from us was to stop the conversation, I think that they, if anything, they have just awoken a million little Charlies that are going to want to go out there and continue his mission. And I have seen people on my feeds that are non-political people, or they don't post or talk about politics, especially down here in the South. Down here in the South, like, we don't bring up politics like with each other. It's just like a respect thing. And so these are people who don't talk about politics often, and they were coming out and sharing their thoughts on him. And I think on this situation, and I think that, to your point, if the best way to honor Charlie Kirk and first of all, the immense impact that he had on politics, whether you like it or not. He had a massive impact in the short amount of time that he was on this earth, spent 10 years of it in politics and building Turning Point. Is not going and that's not going anywhere. But the best way to honor him is to continue the conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this upcoming AmFest is going to be a tear fest. I can't even imagine. Every time I think about it, it makes me a little emotional, because it's going to be convention center packed with people that love Charlie, that are going to miss him so deeply, because his lack of presence there is going to be felt immensely. He's one of the only speakers that I would stay and listen to in the beginning of opening up. When they would do their speakers, it would be him and Tucker, and then everyone else, I'd be like, yeah, no, your speech was great. But he's going to be so missed, and it's actually so sad, because like you said, all these thousands of little Charlies and everything, he's clearly so obviously been an inspiration to so many of us. And also he's validated so many of us, because it's a lot of us will do this content and we talk about all these things with zero benefit to our life. We won't make any money. If anything, we'll lose relationships over it. We'll lose money over it. We'll lose contracts, businesses, jobs, all of that. And then for you to be plucked out of obscurity by Turning Point, you know what I mean? And then sent to these events, and you feel like somebody because you're given a pass. That has opened the doors for so many people and changed so many people's lives, and has given us some of the our most beloved creators now. So it's his legacy is going to keep going for so much longer, and more so than really anyone. Because if you think about it, Charlie really he really prioritized influencers and creators, and just pick up your phone and talk to the camera type videos. And you think about him and Turning Point when you think about that kind of talking head videos. So I think, like Shawn said, if their goal was to erase Charlie, the movement, his memory or legacy of where it's going, you've created a martyr now, and you're going to inspire so many more people. And Charlie will be so, so deeply missed, because so many of us felt like he gave us that mark of validation, where it's oh, okay, I'm a part of this movement now. And when you struggle for so long and you do all these things with no benefit, and you get that recognition, it means so much. It means a lot. And a lot of people will kind of play it cool and stuff, but it's absolutely validating. It's it's getting a call back if you were a struggling drag queen and RuPaul's Drag Race calls you back. You know what I mean? It's it's a little like that, but it's true. It's he's changed so many people's lives, and what he's done is incredible. It really is. He's built a movement, a legacy. I'm going to stop before I start crying again.
The FBI just released footage of who they believe was the shooter, and they're asking people to reach out if they have any information. So here is an image of who is believed to have shot Charlie Kirk. It looks like he's wearing some sort of American flag.
It might be like,
shirt.
it could be like a turning point thing. He could be like in disguise, you know?
Yeah. So this is
Why do they all look
image.
like such shooters too? Like straight up.
The FBI tweeted, they said, we're asking for the public's help identifying this person of interest in connection with the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. Call 1-800-CALL, CALL, call FBI, or direct any tips to FBI.gov. So 1-800-CALL FBI if anybody has any information.
Yeah, I can't tell what's on the shirt, but I was just about to mention that they did that while we were on the air about 20 some minutes ago. Or it looks like it happened right before we went on, but updated it about 25 minutes ago. So
any closing thoughts, guys?
God, I don't know that he's gonna be missed. And also like it's the irony of, you know, it being 9/11 today too. And I think something that we should keep in our hearts and minds now is just like 9/11, which was another very public traumatizing event that the world watched happen. That motivated and geared an entire society into action later after that. There were positives to that. It was very united. We were very united for a long time. And there were negatives like the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War and everything else. So I hope we hold in our hearts, like, what is the positivity that we can take from this and the unification? And like you said, lead with some love and be like Charlie. Charlie was, you know, wanted to put treating people and his faith first. We should be like that also. And then to be cognizant and aware of not being pushed and manipulated into something and just becoming another cog in some political machine and being some useful idiot for some people pulling the strings, God knows where. You know, sometimes we don't even need to know who's pulling the strings. As long as you just cut them off yourself, that's the most we can do. So we don't need to figure out who's running everything and where all this is coming from. As long as the strings aren't attached to you, that's what you can actually control. So you don't know who the puppeteer is, but you can choose not to be a puppet by just cutting your own strings. So
I think in terms of closing thoughts for me, I would say that if we think about how we got here, it was through continually raising the temperature. And we should have seen something like this coming, given the assassination attempts on Trump, the doxing and swatting of right-wing influencers, the media continuing to raise the temperature. And so when we talk about how we got here, and then Zach, you mentioned a U-turn or a turn of some point, this has the opportunity to be a turning point for us to stop raising the temperature, stop getting more aggressive with the rhetoric, and then honoring Charlie and doing so through dialogue, not destruction, unity over division, and faith in what we believe in as Americans and the use of our First Amendment rights to have that dialogue and realize that we have more in common than we don't.
Yeah. And part of the reason I invited you both on the show today is to show a representation of the right or center right or alt-right or however you want to identify. But like, we've demonized people that are not on the left. And we need to show that there are people that are not on the left, like the three of us, that can come and be just decent human beings right now and who can grieve, but also still show up with active love, you know? And I don't think we demonized anybody in today's conversation. I don't think we pointed any strong fingers at anybody. I don't think, you know, we came here to push a white supremacist Nazi agenda here. You know, I think we had compassion for Charlie, even though our lifestyle may not have fully been in agreement with him and vice versa. You know, I think there are parts of his own lifestyle that I was like, all right, I'll judge you for this and you judge me for that, but we can still love each other, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just be straight in the privacy of your own bedroom, please. You know what I mean? I don't want to see it.
Good, David.
I also, just based off of the last, 12 days of my life, I lost somebody who felt very isolated in this world. And I, believe they felt isolated because they started to open up about their own, opinions and beliefs that some of our friends didn't agree with. And I felt some of that isolation. I was cut off by people, and I had friends that I thought, were sharing in this mutual loss together. Somebody that we loved is not here anymore. This would be an opportunity for us to connect over that. And I still faced that isolation and that they ostracized me in that way. And they couldn't even just be a human to me, where my heart was broken. And I was so shattered because I was grieving somebody that I loved that is no longer on this physical plane with us. And in those moments, that where you could just have a basic level of human empathy, I still couldn't get an answer to a phone call, a response to a text message, or a hello at, a celebration of somebody that we both loved. And that's hard. And I, went to a very dark place in the last 12 days, and a place that I never saw myself going. And I understood how that ostracizing of people and how that, cutting of people off can push somebody to a point where they would, do something they may regret. And that's really unfortunate that we're not only encouraging, this rhetoric that can divide people to a place where we ostracize them to a point where they either feel the need to take somebody's life or they feel the need to take their own life. We just have to continue to, show up with active love. That's all we can do.
There's no like mental health issue that gets better with isolation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the last thing. I made a video last night saying I think one of the most important things we can do right now is reach out to community and reinforce those community ties, and just remind yourself that you're not alone. And that's a lie that so many people that feel like they don't have a way out tell themselves, is that they are alone because they feel that way,
Yeah.
So people need to remember that they're not.
Yeah. I think we've got a lot more in common. Like I've said it a couple of times, but I think it's important. And I think about like in White Lotus, where they're like, you didn't vote for Trump, did you? Like, what do you mean? Are you a Republican?
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm an independent. But you didn't vote for Trump, did you? And I think that what people need to realize is like there are 78 million people in this country that voted for him. And there are not 78 million fascists in this country. So you just have to realize like we can't let politics divide. And it's cost us friendships, it's cost us jobs, it's cost us relationships, it's cost us so much, all in the name of like what your political affiliation. Like it's become so out of control, and we need to reset and remember that there aren't 78 million fascists in this country, but there are 78 million people who voted the way that they wanted to vote. And I don't believe that there are 74 million communists in this country.
Hope not.
It's not like that. I don't see it that way. We all have so much more in common than what I think is portrayed in the media. And lead with love, just like you guys said.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for coming on. Do you want to share your platforms if people want to follow you or spew hate at you?
Sure. I'm American David without the A, so like American David. The @ sign is the A. It's super clever. On Instagram and TikTok, American David 2.0. I'm locked out of my Twitter, so I don't know. You can still go drop me a like. I've been locked out for a month, so I have no idea. But Instagram and TikTok are still a thing.
I don't know what I would do if I got locked out of my Twitter. One time Twitter went down and I feel I was started having heart palpitations. I don't know what I would do about it for a month, but and mine is Shawn on the right. It's the same as it is right here on the screen, but on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram.
Love it. Thank you so much for having us. This is great.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. This was a great
Guys.
conversation.
I appreciate you. And just I want to repeat, my heart goes out to Erica, Charlie Kirk's wife, and to his 2 babies that will move forward in life without their dad. So love to them. Love to everyone watching. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you coming and listening, and just continue to move through your day. And remember, we can all be just a little nicer to each other and have a little bit more empathy for each other. And
Yep.
that's all we can do right now. All right, guys. I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.